Hello, Jim here. Selling options is a great way to make some extra income on a monthly basis, but at times it can become quite stressful, and that happened this past week. I had an early assignment with CVS, so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how to handle early assignments, and then I want to share with you how I handled CVS. So stay tuned. I'm going to go into detail about that. I'm also going to talk about some mistakes I've made and some of my members and subscribers have made. I'm not going to share names or anything along those lines, but I want other people to learn from it. So stay tuned. I think you're really going to enjoy what I have for you. Go ahead and jump right in. Now, it's been a wake up call with my CVS trade. I've not had a company drop like the way they did this past week and then get assigned so quickly. The early assignment happened not just to me, but several members and several subscribers. I had a lot of people contact me related to it. So it was kind of a shock. Typically, you don't see everyone getting assigned right away, but in this case, it did happen. So it was kind of a wake up call. It made me realize again how important protection is. That I believe professional traders or traders who are doing trades for other people, they typically don't do trades without protection. I don't believe they do cash secured puts. They may do covered calls, but that's protected. And then maybe they will do cash secured puts, but they're definitely not doing anything with margin or anything that's a lot riskier. So this whole experience has helped me to understand, how the protection is so important. And then part of that too is the fact that if you purchase the put and the stock drops like CVS did, suddenly, the puts become so much more valuable. So it allows you to have more choices. You can choose to keep the shares and sell the puts, and by selling the puts, lowering your cost basis. Which can be a big deal. If you can end up picking up the stock even cheaper than you originally thought, maybe not as low as it currently is, but it will allow you to sell calls on that security later on at a much lower price, and you can become profitable a lot quicker. So it's not always a given that you would close the trade for a loss. A lot of times, you have to go back to why you made that trade originally. And that's one thing I like to do with my membership, since I'm posting all my trades. And I put a description why I like the company, why I like what price it is, why I made the trade. And it's nice to be able to go back and look at that. It reminds me of why I really like the company. And then, another important point is, if you had purchased the shares originally, so I believe this CVS trade occurred back in February. If I had just purchased the shares at that time, I believe CVS was around 76. So if I had just purchased the shares and I had never done the cash secured put or a vertical put credit spread, in this case for CVS, I would have been much worse off compared to where I am now, because suddenly I'm finding myself, yes, deep in the money, but I have some cash. I have some puts that I purchased that are worth a lot. I have the premium from the original trade. So I have the potential of many more choices than if I had just purchased the shares. And you'll see that even more at the very end of the video when I share my spreadsheet that I had done with making the decision on how I wanted to handle that trade. So one thing that's pretty important too is, by having the protection and actually, selling options, selling puts, it gives you a way to handle assignment in many more ways than if you were just doing cash secured puts, or if you had just purchased the shares. So I like to look at it this way. So you have like 4 different choices that you can make. Of course, you could close it for a loss and just move on. And a lot of people like to do that. They don't like to mess with different trades, and they may not really like the companies. I do it differently. I'm an investor first. I'm an income investor. So in a lot of these cases, I want to own these companies. I want to own them at a great price. So that's typically not the choice I make. I usually want the shares, and I want to own them at an even lower price, which again, being deep in the money gives you that opportunity. The other choice is assignment and selling the puts. So you sell the puts and you keep all the shares. And because of that, you have them at a much lower cost basis. So, maybe the stock was trading at, well, we use CVS. So CVS was trading, I think around 70, 68, something like that. It dropped all the way to the mid 50s. My cost basis, I think, is going to be like 63. Now it's recovered a little bit, but if it recovers another dollar or two, I'm at a point where I can start selling covered calls. So another choice you have is assignment, selling puts, and selling some shares. In this case, this is what I did, and it's primarily because I made a mistake when I first made this trade. I did it in the wrong account. I should have done it in my IRA, but I did it in my Roth. My Roth is much smaller. It's like 55,000 versus 400,000, and I have a lot less cash in it. And I realized that when I made the trade. So I kind of, if it had been in the IRA, I probably would have done a different scenario. I might very well have kept all 200 shares. What I decided to do was just to keep 100 shares, mainly because of what account it's in. It's an account that can't handle 200 shares of CVS. Now, the other choice is assignment plus selling puts plus selling all the shares. Now, you might say, well, why would I do that? It's going to be better just to, close the positions and move on. Well, I found in a lot of cases, assignment with selling the puts and then selling all the shares is potentially cheaper than just selling the option position. You might not think that's the case, but I threw it into a spreadsheet a number of times, and I found that's the case probably 50, 60% of the time. And part of that is probably because, these positions still had 2 or 3 weeks. They still had some extrinsic value. So it's probably related to that. So in the case of an early assignment, you can do this and potentially do better. And like I said, I've done some number crunching and I found that's the case. I haven't actually used it, I believe, at all, again, because I want to own some of the shares, if not all the shares. Like when I've been assigned Cisco, I've kept all of Cisco. I've kept, I believe, all of Franklin Resources and some of the others, including Corning. I've picked up a lot of Corning over the years. And again, the last choice is just closing a position and moving on. Now, if you're just primarily an options trader and you're like maybe doing a 50% profit, this may be the better choice for you. You may have some percentages that one loss out of 10 is worth it, and you just want to move on and put your capital back towards a different security or a different stock. I don't work that way. Again, I'm an investor first, so I typically look, if I can find a great company at a really good price, that's usually my primary goal. And picking up CVS at potentially around 63 is, in my mind, a good idea, a great company at a great price. Now, could I be wrong? Could it drop down into the 40s? It could. You just never know. Now, I do like their numbers. Not Microsoft, Walmart came out and said they're closing their clinics. They're not going to compete with CVS. So that may be a good thing for CVS. Also, CVS you can't do like cash purchase when you're at one of the clinics. You always have to go through insurance. I wonder if they'll change that. It would make sense. A lot of the other types of scans and blood work and things like that, I can always get a cash price. And even with having insurance, the cash price is usually cheaper even than my copay. So that's the main thing. At the very end of the video, actually, before we do this next group, let's jump in. Let me show you what my spreadsheet looks like. So this was for CVS. So I had the CVS calculations. The assignment was 14,500 at 72.50. That's 200 shares. I sold the puts for 1528.63. My opening trade was 325. And then the total cost was 12,646. If you divide that by the 200 shares, it's 63.23. So that's my cost basis. So what I did next is I actually came over here and wanted to come up with a profit loss for this trade. Now, in some cases, I don't do this, again, because it kind of comes with the territory. And a lot of times it's not a big loss like this. This case, I decided to do it. So if you look at my planning worksheet for this week, you'll actually see a loss in there for this. So here's the 14.6. Again, I took that as a negative. Then I added in all the money I brought in, and then I sold 100 shares. So, and then the value of 100 shares on Friday at this particular time was 55.77 per share, which gave me around a 15.83 loss. Now I believe it's gone up even higher. I believe it's right at, it would be closer to 5,600. So it'd probably be closer to a 15.50, 15.60 loss. And if CVS keeps going up, say it goes up to $70 again, it would be almost no loss. And then selling covered calls, I could be in the green. Now that would have happened a lot quicker if I was able to keep 200 shares. But again, with being in the wrong account, I couldn't really do that. So this is how I accounted for it. Long term, I'm thinking I could see CVS within a couple of years, depending on how they handle, some of these reimbursements and how they maybe make future changes to the clinics, could be back as an $80 stock. So let's go back to the sheet. Now, one thing I wanted to share with everyone is I get a lot of contact from my subscribers, from my members, and I want to share mistakes people have made, mistakes I've made. If you're curious about my memberships, as always, take a look in my description. I share details about my memberships. One of them is closed. One of the other ones is still fairly open. The two more expensive ones they don't have a week free. My inexpensive one, that's $10 a month, does have a week free, so you could try it. In all the different memberships, you get free access to all my spreadsheets, to all my posts. The paid ones include Discord. I made them where they're no longer a week free, primarily because I had imposters getting in, I had spammers getting in, so I eliminated that, and that has made a big difference. I do have some weird things going on with people trying to friend other people, and they're not, they're crooks. They're people trying to get in to potentially cause harm. But most of my membership understands that too. That's something not unique to me. It's typical across Discord. So what are the issues? What are some of the mistakes I've made? And I've done this more than once. I did this years ago, and I called Schwab all freaked out. I put in the trades backwards. So I did a trade, and I bought, I was trying to do a credit spread, and I bought the more expensive. And in a sense, I did a debit spread, but that's not what I wanted. I called them. They just walked me through it and said, just reverse the trade. It'll be a little bit of a cost, but it won't be a big deal. So I did that. Now I've done it again. I actually had a member share with me, oh, wait, I think you have a debit spread, not a credit spread here. And sure enough, I that's what I did. And again, I reversed the trade. So it's something that happens. I wouldn't beat yourself up with it. The other issue is trading in the wrong account. Be careful. I shared previously that I thought I was in my IRA when I made my CVS trade. I was actually in my Roth. So whenever you have that last screen come up where you're reviewing the trade, be sure to take your time. Be sure to look at it. Be sure you're not making a mistake. And if you are, you can back out of it, like I said, by reversing it. So even if you do a cash secured put for, a date later down the road, you can enter the opposite trade and maybe have a little bit of loss. I did have a different member that got confused when they were paper trading. They weren't using Schwab or Fidelity or Thinkorswim. They were using a different broker. And I guess it wasn't clear that they were not paper trading. They were live trading, and they were live trading with SPY. This individual panicked. They thought they were out all this money. It was very nerve-wracking period of time. I actually talked to the Schwab trader desk, and they answered some questions because I wasn't sure I was given the exactly right answer, but they gave me more details, and everything was okay. He put more money in there, and this individual took care of things and was able to deal with it. Last but not least, which is in my mind another mistake that a lot of people can make. So I had another member put in the wrong number of zeros when they were putting the number of contracts in, and the trade went through. You know, so it was a big shock to have 100 contracts versus 1 or 10, and then the fees go through the roof. The fees, it just 65 cents per contract can be quite a bit. For two contracts, it's usually $1.30, $1.32, or some amount like that. But with 100 contracts, suddenly it gets a lot more costly. So if this happens to you, you make this mistake, my biggest advice is get on the phone right away with your brokerage. A lot of times they will waive some of the fees, and they might even be able to reverse the trade quickly. But don't wait till the next day. Literally, if you make that kind of a mistake, get on the phone and deal with it right away. Like I said, I've had instances with, I believe, Schwab primarily. I've had really good instances with Fidelity too. Fidelity has, when some of my positions were moved over from Schwab, some of the credit spreads were not linked, and they linked them pretty quickly. And then I believe with Schwab, they took off some fees. I had some weird fees, like suddenly I was being charged margin interest and I shouldn't be. So I reviewed the account, I called them, and they reversed those. So a phone call a lot of times can save the day. So I wanted to share this mainly because you just never know with these earnings. I believe if CVS had given different guidance, they probably wouldn't have dove so much. We saw that with Tesla. Tesla actually had some pretty bad earnings, and Elon gave some interesting guidance. He's lowering the pricing of the cars, trying to make them affordable for everyone, which actually caused the stock to go up, not down. So wanted to share that. If you've had some instances like this, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear about it. Again, I'm trying to share this with people. When you're getting started with options, it's just comes with the territory. So if you've made a mistake or you have some something to share, please leave a comment. I try to answer them within 24, 48 hours, and I typically answer all my comments. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.